how's it going? So today, as usual, natural rights. I'd like to introduce some archaeology that's coming out. Um, there's in Bosnia, they have been excavating a pyramid there that easily predates the pyramids and is larger than the pyramids in Gaza. We are finding all kinds of pyramids. Well, actually, on every single continent on this planet, there are pyramids, which we seem not to be able to explain, which we really kind of can. We're finding that the history that we have is very inaccurate, and the establishment, for probably the same reasons I would guess as in early Western civilization, wanted to control the information. I believe this information has pretty much always been known by the elite. However, with the internet and technology and the amount of people that are active in bringing things of this nature to light, archaeology, the scientists, the real science, that they're getting in there and really doing the study and not sticking with this old tradition of science that we have, which is directly tied to politics. So, and directly tied to Darwinism. And I'm not saying that there isn't some truth to Darwinism. What I'm saying is that there is some gap, and the prior gap is what we're really kind of talking about. We kind of enter Darwinism with a little bit of the gap there, and hence where we are. But the remains that we're finding throughout the Yucatan, South America, Peru, all the way through there, Guatemala, and the pyramids that they're finding there. One pyramid, and you can look this up yourself, in Guatemala is the size of downtown LA. It is huge, but we haven't been noticing these things because they are so deep under the soil and the root systems, and we're looking at them as basically mountain and hill ranges, when in fact, archaeology is now finding that many of these are actually pyramids, which in itself has to rewrite our history. And in these places, the artifacts and the things that we're finding have to rewrite what we are told of their knowledge, because clearly their knowledge was because we have found symbolism, or earlier, before cuneiform, which is the Sumerian writing, which we say is the earliest form, there is a form of marking which they're equating to a form of writing, which we find universally everywhere across the planet. Making the point and alluding to the theory, which I tend to agree with from my own personal studies. I'm not going to really go into that, and I couldn't go into that in this, but that we go much further back. That life on this planet goes much, much further back than when we enter with the Sumerians and the Akkadians and Hittite and so on and so forth. I'll kind of one-on-one Western Civ. The Sumerians even allude to it in their text, and Zachariah Stitch has done, and he is a linguist for all intent and purposes, and his translations of over 40 years of research indicate the text to be accurate in the sense that they are accounting for what they believe to be the same as us writing of an actual account now. However, we don't look at it the same way. There's plenty of things out in this world that we do not understand, but as we become interconnected globally, we are finding this everywhere, which I understand the religious and tones that would basically rewrite every religion. And so I understand the animosity, and I understand where the reluctancy is coming from. However, really, truly, they are the same. Both Muslim, both Jewish, and Christian text all comes from Sumerian, the original. And of course, they have their own scriptures and so on and so forth. But all the stories come from that. They basically include Gilgamesh. They include Moses. And I'm not talking about this from a Catholic standpoint of view or any other point of view, but from a literature historical point of view, that this is brought to light. Moses describes the sphere, the rounds of the earth from above, and we find this in in Hopi Indians, we find these same things throughout all the world. And I hate to say this shit because I don't know even know how to express this, but it all comes back to seemingly the snake as a universal marking. The Sumerians reference it, I guess, in a text, in the sense and text of that these are the images of the original deities. I don't know whether that relates to 4,500 years ago, 445,000 years ago, is what the Sumerian text is saying it started. And we would have been genetically enhanced then after by Anunnaki and his wife and the whole thing that played out with his brother Enlil, ENLIL, or EN.L period .LIL, meaning the commander basically, and EN.KI broke down meaning that EN.KI, meaning coming from the water. From what I gather, the astronaut that is coming from water, or the deity, the god that comes from water, and then that kind of relates into there's a book that Zachariah Stitchin, sorry, I'm just probably slaughtering the man's name, wrote that it goes into this scribe who claims that the text that he is writing is directly from Anunnaki and talking about before our creation and after. Also alludes into a nuclear war. Okay. Now I know that's far-fetched, but no further far-fetched than any of the other religions that we talk about when you get down to what they're talking about. But the thing that we're finding out with archaeology through all of these religions is that the texts that they're talking about, these places that they're talking about, truly did exist. So modern science and modern archaeology, quote unquote, the establishment, would say these do not exist because they go contrary to Darwinism. So anything that doesn't fit into that category does not exist, does not exist, does not exist. Well, that is partially the control, and they do know it exists. But the control grid of religion, and no offense to anybody who's either Muslim or Catholic, this is not an attack upon your religion, or Jewish, or whatever, Hindu, who cares, whatever. I don't mean any offense to you. This is not an attack upon your religion, but just namely showing the unification that we're all one. My belief, again, is that we were created as a slave race. You can track this through 101 Mesopotamia, Western Civ as it spreads across, and that's where you get into the bloodlines and the current. However, none of that shit makes sense to anybody if you don't understand the past. And we do have the archaeology, we do have the science, we are coming up there. You have to step out and you have to look at the other science. The mainstream is not going to cover it, but these are actual buildings and shit. They just pretend like they don't exist. However, they do. I've seen the underwater photographs, I've watched the documentaries off the coast of Japan. Supposed to be Mao, kind of an Atlantis of that area. And you can look at it. You can see the statues. You can see the erosion. It's nothing unsimilar to what we would find off the coast of Greece, knowing that the earthquakes and these things that and these were current in their timeline. However, expand further out and take the coast of Japan. Also take. I could go on and on. You have to do the research and take a look. Look for yourself. Make your own judgments. Be careful. There are people that put shitty stuff out there and just buy into anything. I try to study more of the archaeology and the text of it, and I'm not alone in this. I mean, there are world famous archaeologists and people who translate that this is what they believe to be true too. So I'm not insane in what I'm talking about. Actually, if you wanted to go toe to toe with science, now I'm not disclaiming God. That's your own personal thing. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to present that the information is out there and it might be time to take a look. How does this tie into natural rights? Well, the theme has been slavery. And the best form of slavery is when the slave does not know he's a slave. And again, I'm going to say this frankly, it would be kind of like the field slave and Uncle Tom, or slavery versus indentured servitude. They were divides. You can look at any of the prominent black leaders, they'll explain it to you also, that this is, and I'm talking about, look at what they talk about. They're talking about the same thing. This is all created to divide us by color and all these things. And none of these things matter, or who you have sex with, or what you do, as long as you don't hurt others. And that is the point. But the control will tell you that you have to be a certain way. You can't be who you are. And you look at the dysfunction in our society. Tell me that is not caused by being unnatural, in a sense, and having. I mean, I've never heard of so many disease and so much psychology is booming and the industry's booming. And we know these things. We see these things. We see it's a business. We see it's a control. But it's the suspended disbelief. Kind of as a suspended disbelief, although you're looking at a fucking pyramid, excuse my language, but you say, oh no, that cannot exist, although there is the pyramid. Kind of like the blocks that I talk about in Jerusalem, that, in the area in the Gaza, 800,000 ton, and that's on the low end, 800,000 ton. 3 of them, which is where Zachariah Stitch would tie in that these were the actual landing pads. Makes a little bit, if you can't make sense of it, you can't just simply dismiss it because it does not fit into the realm of the status quo reality. These are actual places with actual. You can put your hands on them. They are there. They are not a myth. These are actual architectural buildings with architects in them. Okay? We can debate the carbon dating. We can debate all that, but you cannot debate that this building does not exist. The fact that it's covered under X amount of soil will definitely allude to just even the simple nature that the average soil in, Bosnia, for instance, on the pyramids, the average soil growth is about a centimeter every 250 years to 300 years. They're finding 60 centimeters to 80 centimeters below the soil. Do the math, okay? Do the math. Yet, for some reason, and I guarantee you, this was recorded, and these places were recorded in our earlier history. However, many of the transcripts and the tablets and these things have been kept from us. But now here is the building. Same as the buildings that they do talk about as they talk in our religions as being mythical and not existing, yet we are finding them all the time. I'm not talking about the walking on water or the water to wine stuff. I'm not talking about what the Catholic Church presented out or any other religion has presented out. I'm talking about the tangible facts, the text from the people that were there, predating. And I come to no other conclusion at this point, but if all other things, the most simplest explanation would be that what they are saying is true, because the status quo explanation is not meshing. It is not adding up. It is not working. It is a lie. It is a lie of control. And we all need to wake up and start taking our place in this world. And this includes all of us and every other country too, not just here in America. And these finds are not owned by any government or country. These are owned by the population of this planet. The entire species. And I see us as one species with some other genetic. Anyways, but you can look at the text yourself. This is what they're talking about. You may infer to, in Christianity, it would be Eden. As a place. And then you can also talk about Anunnaki. If you look at some of the books, he talks about where he placed his home in stone and so on and so forth. The toil for the gold, for mining gold. We're also finding artifacts that just defy any possible manufacturing we have today. You've heard little bits and pieces throughout your lifespan. Okay? We know more now than we knew then. And you have to search out the box, not the fucking Discovery Channel, not the History Channel. Again, it is Darwin active. I'll give you an example. It would be the Pharaoh King Tut, when they did his head. The actual X-ray shows the elongated head. However, they shrunk it down. You can look for yourself. It's right there. But the mass public will see this, and they won't look any further into it. They will not ask the question, is what I am being presented factual? I try to as best I can. You can always be fooled. But I will say this. If 10% or even 1% of what I am finding is true, and I believe most of the stuff, I discredit the hoaxes and I go through that and what can be shown or what can be kind of proven or what can you base a theory off of tangible stuff, not the But the reality is, for somebody looking in, it's going to appear, out there. But there's just too much. We all know this. I mean, we see this everywhere across the world. People claiming to see the same things, hear the same things. We're all sharing the same experience. And we are being lied because it's a mechanism of control that goes further back than any kind of government you can think of or any history. It goes further back than the Sumerians. And read for yourself, because I can't tell you. You have to find out for yourself. And you can think I'm crazy or you can think I'm not, but please, at least spend a half an hour a week, half an hour every day for a week, just going and researching this stuff. And when you spell Anunnaki, it's Anunnnika. Okay, not the other way around. I just start off, if the motherfucker can't spell it, okay, and is making videos, step away. The actual spelling. And you have to start with that. There's a mixture of hoaxes and there's a mixture of bullshit. But if you I spend probably 2 hours, I've tapered off, probably 2 hours a day. Usually early when I get up in the morning, I do research. I do other research at the same time. But the compilement of what I have found is, that is my belief. Call me crazy, call me not, but I can back my shit up. I can show you documentation. We can have a sit down and I can show you documentation up the ass. And all you'll be able to show me is the status quo, blah, 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 the same stuff that you just go, oh, well, it doesn't exist. And so we won't categorize it because it doesn't exist. It doesn't fit the explanation. But it does fit the explanation. They're just giving you the wrong one. So everyone, peace, all one. Find out how much of a slave we really are. Because until all of us, if one of us is a slave, then all of us are a slave. And that is the name of the game, to try to wake up your neighbor non-violently. But you have to do the research, and you have to be able to fucking do I'll sit down with anybody. We can sit down and I'll back everything I have to say up. Everything. I'll point to the places to get it. We can do this. I won't do this fucking over the line through a text message or through email. It'll be a sit down and we can go all through everything, and you can pull up anything that you want to do to contradict whatever I have to say. That's fine. But at the end of the day, I pretty much guarantee this. Either you'll be convinced or I'll get the same circular argument that I always get, that can't accept any of the stuff they can't explain. It's kind of like the genetics and the X portion that they just go, oh, it's waste. It has no value. It has no nothing. We know everything about the genetics. Simply a fucking lie. But the mass public will believe it because they don't even see, you don't even recognize what they're saying. They're just saying, well, we don't know what this is, and so it means nothing. Kind of like the earth is flat, and because that's what we say, it means nothing. We found this pyramid that predates anything we have in history, but it means nothing. We're finding them all over the world, but it means nothing. It's a lie. Wake up. Love. This is a long one. Sorry, but that's the way it is. So everybody enjoy.